The moment that you understand these two things, manifestation stops feeling like hope and it starts feeling like physics. And the first thing is why the results take time to catch up with the work that you've already done. And the second is how to tell the difference between a manifestation that is coming and one that has already collapsed. Now, most people never learn either of them, which is why they give up on day 11. There is a particular kind of person who finds this channel. They are not looking for motivation. They are not interested in vision boards or high vibrational thinking or screaming affirmations at themselves in the mirror. They want to understand how this actually works. And they are the ones who sit with something uncomfortable long enough before they let it change them. Interesting kind of person. What most people get wrong about manifestation is this. It doesn't work through fantasy. It works through identity, through building a new sense of who you are, through repeated moments that your subconscious begins to accept as familiar, and through holding that identity steady, not just through during your practice, but throughout the day. That is the foundation. But nobody tells you what happens after that. You can do everything right. You can practice every morning and every night. You can catch yourself every time doubt starts to creep in. You can stay consistent for days and weeks and still nothing visible has changed. The bank account, it still looks the same. The relationship has not appeared. The body doesn't reflect what you have been building inside. And there's a voice that arrives at that point. It says, maybe this doesn't work for me. Maybe I am the exception. Maybe I got it wrong. That voice has been saying the same thing for years. But it sounds exactly like your own thoughts, which is what makes it so effective, because somewhere underneath that voice, there is a part of you that is simply watching it, noticing it run. That part has always been there. And that part is the one that this video is speaking to. Now, the reason I know that this is not theory, my name is Dion Goldsmith, and I teach manifestation mechanics. I've spent over 20 years studying how consciousness shapes reality using both ancient Vedic texts and modern neuroscience. And I used these principles to heal from cancer when doctors had told me that I'd left it too late. I rebuilt my finances from nothing after years of illness and debt. And I finally understood love at 45 after choosing decades of the same painful pattern over and over. And in every one of those situations, there was a point where nothing in my outer world had changed, where the voice had arrived, and where I had to learn to read different evidence than the evidence in front of me. That's what this video is about. So, you have been practicing manifestation consistently and nothing in your outer world has changed. And what is actually happening is this. Now, in quantum physics, there is something that is called the quantum field. You may have heard of it. Every physical outcome that you could ever experience, the money, the relationship, the health, already exists in that field as pure potential. Not as a future possibility, not as something waiting to be created, as something that already exists in an unformed state. And most people accept that without blinking. And then immediately go back to asking why their manifestation is taking so long, without sitting with what that actually implies. If it already exists as potential, the question is never whether it is possible. The question is only what is required to collapse that potential into form. Now, the ancient Vedantic texts, they described this thousands of years ago, before modern physics had the language for it. They called it the unmanifest, the field of pure consciousness from which all arises. And it's what modern science calls the quantum field. The ancient Vedic people, they called it Brahman, the underlying reality behind all appearance. Two completely different traditions, two completely different centuries, pointing at the same thing. Now sit with that for a moment. When you build a new identity impression through your practice, repeating a mental moment so many times that your subconscious begins to accept it as familiar, what the ancient teachers, they called samskara. You're not trying to pull something towards you from the outside. You are collapsing a potential that already exists in the field into form, not attraction, selection. And that changes everything about the delay. There's something about a Rubik's cube that explains this perfectly. Imagine that you are standing across the room and you can see a Rubik's cube and it's scrambled. You can see that it's scrambled. What you cannot see from across the room is that someone has been working on it methodically every day. Now, the cube, it looks scrambled to you because you are watching it from a distance and you can only see the one face. But from the inside, from the perspective of the person who was working on it, the work is happening. The pieces, they are moving. The logic, it's intact. And the cube cannot go from scrambled to solved by skipping steps. The middle of a solve, it looks like chaos. It looks like the cube, it gets more scrambled before it got better because it did. That's not a sign that something went wrong. That is the solve in progress. Now, most people abandon the cube at that point. The moment it looks more scrambled than when they started, they put it down and they say, this is too complicated for me, or I must be doing it wrong, or this must not work for someone like me. And the cube sits on the table 3 moves away from being solved. There is a second thing about the delay that changes everything. Is the difference between A to Z and A to B. Your manifestation, the end state that you are building towards, is the letter Z. And you are at A. And what most people do at that point is they try to find the straight line from A to Z. And then when no straight line appears, they conclude that the destination, it doesn't exist. But that's not how manifestation actually unfolds. Manifestation unfolds A to B, then B to C, one step revealed at a time, not because the universe is withholding the map from you, but because The next step only becomes visible when you are ready to see it. Like a GPS, it understands this completely. The GPS, it knows the destination before you leave, but it doesn't show you every road at once. It shows you the next turn, because showing you every turn simultaneously would be useless. You can't process it. You cannot act on it. You would sit in your driveway just overwhelmed. So the GPS, it gives you the next instruction when you are in a position to receive it. And as you move, more is revealed. Your awareness is the GPS, the identity that you have been building, that repeated impression in your subconscious is the destination already set. The route is being calculated in real time. And there's a third thing about the delay that nobody talks about. The ancients talked about it under the concept of karma, which in its original Sanskrit meaning is just simply action and consequence unfolding through time. Not punishment, not bad luck, consequence. Now, most people nod at the word and they think they understand it, but consequence is not just what happens to you, it is everything that needs to rearrange itself around who you are becoming. When you build a new samskara, a new identity impression, you are not just changing what you desire. You are changing who you are. And who you are creates consequences in the physical world. And these consequences, they take time to arrange, not because reality is slow, but because reality is thorough. It's not rearranging one thing for you. It's rearranging everything that needs to change for the new version of you to step into a physical world that matches them. Other people's decisions, timing, circumstances that need to align. Someone who was supposed to leave a job has not left yet. A conversation that needs to happen has not happened yet. A version of you that needs to exist first does not fully exist yet. And none of that is within a single conscious mind's control. But the ancients understood, and modern physics is beginning to point towards that all of it responds to the quality of the signal being sent from within. The delay is not the absence of movement. The delay is the thoroughness of the rearrangement. There is a type of person who understands this instinctively. They do not need the outside to confirm that what they are building on the inside. They have learned to read different experiences. And that skill, measuring the inside rather than watching the outside, is what separates the people who get there from the people who give up 3 moves away from being solved. So how do you know if your manifestation is coming or if it's already collapsed? Now, there are 3 signs that it is coming. And the first sign, someone who has been practicing for a week gets excited when they sit down to do it. Someone who has been practicing for 10 years barely thinks about it. They just do it. They make it their morning drink, if you like, without ceremony, without needing it to feel significant. That's the difference between hoping and knowing. Your practice still feels familiar rather than desperate. Not exciting, not hopeful, familiar. The way that your home feels when you walk through the door. You're not excited to be home every single time. You just know this is where I live. The quality of knowing without needing to feel anything special about it is the identity impression working correctly. If your practice feels exciting, then the new identity has not yet been formed. It feels desperate. The old identity is still running underneath. If it feels like a memory, then you are on course. The second sign. There is a version of you that already has what you want. That version speaks differently to people. It chooses differently. It lets certain things go without a second thought. Not because they decided to, but because that is who they simply are. The way they speak to people, the way that they choose what to pay attention to, what they no longer entertain. Not big decisions, not dramatic changes, small ones. If you catch yourself making those small, quiet decisions automatically without reminding yourself, without identity, then the identity impression is already structuring your behavior, which means your behavior is already beginning to shape your external world. And the third sign, there is a person who walks into a room and notices a job listing on someone's laptop. They were not looking for it. They were not searching, but something in them registered it before their conscious mind even caught up. Now, 6 months earlier, they would have walked past the same screen without it meaning anything. What changed was not the room. You notice things that you wouldn't have noticed before, not because things have changed, but because your filter changed. The brain does not experience reality neutrally. It filters through the lens of what it already expects to see. And when that new identity begins to take root, the filter changes. And suddenly you start noticing doors that were always there, conversations that carry information that you needed, opportunities that look obvious in retrospect, but were completely invisible before. That's not coincidence. That is the RAS, the reticular activating system, beginning to surface what was always present. The map didn't change. The map reader changed. Now, if those three signs are present, then you are on course. If none of them are present, then the new identity is not fully formed yet, which doesn't mean stop. It means the impression needs more repetition. There is something about the way that a path forms through a forest that explains this exactly. Now, the first time that you walk through, there's no path. You are pushing through undergrowth. But every time you walk the same route, then the ground gets a little clearer, a little easier, until eventually there is a visible road where there used to be nothing. The path needs more footsteps before it becomes a clear road. And the impression needs more repetition before it becomes identity. That is mechanical. It's not personal. There is one more thing worth understanding before this practice. The people who give up at day 11, day 15, day 20, they almost always give up because they're watching the outside. They are measuring their inner progress by looking at the physical world rather than by checking the three signs. The outside is always the last thing to move. It's not where the work is happening. Work is happening in the field, in the impression, in the tiny daily decisions, in what you are starting to notice. And when you learn to measure the inside, the outside stops feeling like evidence against you. It starts feeling like a reflection that is in the process of catching up. And the practice from this point is simple. Keep your practice, whatever form that takes for you, morning and night. Keep it short. Keep it ordinary. Keep it familiar rather than big and exciting. The feeling that you are looking for is not hope. It's recognition, like returning somewhere that you already know. And check the 3 signs once a week, not once a day, once a week. Checking it daily, it creates pressure. And pressure creates an internal conflict between what you want and what you fear is true. And that conflict, it sends mixed signals. And a mixed signal, it slows everything down. Once a week is enough to calibrate without disturbing the process. And when the voice arrives, the one that says, maybe this is not working, recognize it as an old voice. One that was written a long time ago and has been running on repeat ever since. Name it. The moment that you name it, it loses its authority. You are not that script. You are the one who is watching it run. And the one who is watching is the one that decides what gets built next. If you've not watched the 2 Ancient Laws video, watch that next. Everything in this video sits on top of that foundation. And that part of you that we talked about earlier, the one that watches the voice without becoming it, the one that has been here this whole time, understanding what actually is and how it connects to the field. That's what my next video will go into. My name is Dion Goldsmith. This is Manifestation Mechanics. Your state is your creation. Your identity is your destiny. I'll see you in the next video.